Welcome, everyone. Walter McKenzie with the Worthy Educator. Very glad to have you with us on a Saturday here in May. Uh, Very honored to have with us today Javeria Rana, the Academic Director at Unique International Educational Services in Lahore, Pakistan. She has 13 years of experience. She's worn many hats: teacher, trainer, mentor, curriculum developer, speaker, and entrepreneur. But at her core, and I can attest to this getting to know her, she's very much someone who believes in the power of learning to create change. And so we're in for a really great treat this next hour. Javeria, welcome.
Thank you, Walter, and welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from where you are joining us from. So quickly, if you can just take a second and type in the chat where you are joining us today from. Let's see. I can see the chat box here.
All right. Well, I can relate things to you. I had said to Javeria before we got the recording going that I'm in Syracuse, New York this morning, a very rainy morning in upstate New York. And those of you that are just coming into the webinar, what you share in the chat box can be shared with both Javeria and myself. Okay. We have Alfonso from Peru and Chile.
Peru, Chile. Whoa.
Yes. Have some others still typing.
All right, all right. So guys, let's just start. So in a world, marked by rapid change and uncertainty and evolving demands, we all agree that our leadership must evolve too. So as you know, my name is Javeria Rana, and today we're going to jump into a couple of topics, which is understanding the adaptive leadership model, exploring AI ethics role in leadership, addressing teacher retention and well-being, rethink leadership mindset, build a future-ready school, and then you will leave with resources and takeaways. So it's an interactive and space. So when you from here, you will go with strategies that you can start using right away. So before we take a deep dive into our content today, let's do a quick poll in the chat. You can type, which challenge is your school facing the most today? Whether it's resistance to change, it's teacher burnout, it's integrating technology meaningfully, it's student engagement, post-pandemic, or something else. And please remember, there are no right or wrong answers here. You just live your reality, and we're building the next hour here around the pulse of this room. So you might even notice how interconnected these challenges, some of them are, like the burnout, the resistance, the ad tech overload, they often go hand in hand. So adaptive leadership, it begins with noticing what's really going on beneath the surface. And this poll is a great place to start that reflection. Walter, do we have somebody typing? What do we feel, whether it's the resistance to change, teacher burnout, integrating technology?
I don't see any answers in yet. Okay, Manny just entered teacher burnout, which I certainly
All right.
can attest to.
Yeah, teacher
Alfonso,
burnout. All right. Thank you, Alfonso. Yes, I agree. Teacher burnout that can play havoc with teachers, and we're going to discuss that too. All right. So, let's frame our challenge, which is why traditional leadership is not enough anymore. What we see is disruption is the new normal. So, from AI to climate shift to global health crises, disruption is no longer occasional, it's the backup of our work. Leaders used to prepare for change. There was a time when leaders were doing that. But today we lead in change, constantly, analyzing, adapting, adjusting, rethinking, and rehumanizing our approach. Education just doesn't get to sit this one out. Our students are living in a disrupted world and expect us to guide through it all. Then what we have is the complexity, which demands new mindsets. We're not just dealing with complicated problems that need more time. We are facing complex problems with no clear answers. So linear thinking and rigid hierarchies, they cannot keep pace with multidimensional issues that our world is facing right now. So we need leaders who think like system navigators. So a new mindset means curiosity over control and learning over knowing. Next we have is technical versus adaptive challenges. So when we look at technical problems, they are those that we can solve with the known solutions, like, for example, updating a timetable or fixing a policy. That's technical. But adaptive challenge requires us to shift values, change behaviors, and face discomfort. They are messy, they are people centered, they are people oriented, and they're long term. So what are the dangers? When we apply technical fixes to adaptive challenges, we end up treating symptoms instead of systems. So what we need to fix is the systems. If you could change, well, I would like a little warm up. If you could just change one word or use one word. So what do you hear when the word change comes to your mind? Type one word in the chat that comes to your mind when you hear the word change. What is it? Whether it's uncertainty, that is opportunity, what is change to you?
I wish
Walter,
I
do
could,
we see?
not yet. People are thinking, I wish I could do it in one word. I think of big words like transformation,
Okay,
but
that's fine. That's fine.
it,
So,
go ahead, go ahead.
no, change for you is transformation. Could you please describe it a little?
Yeah, one word is hard for me. It seems to me that in an age of disruption, there are so many opportunities to address the systemic things that hold us back. And
Hmm.
what I'm excited about in getting to know you is the ways you think about adapting and putting people first and addressing those systemic things that will allow us to really meet the needs of children and meet the needs of a society that is so quickly morphing. Um,
Yeah, maybe
what
morphine. Yeah,
the things that are in our system were appropriate 50 years ago. And
yeah,
society has changed so
exactly.
much that trying to use those 50-year-old solutions to address kids' needs today and teachers'
Yeah.
needs today, just it doesn't
You
work.
see, Walter, you see, Walter, that's the reason I asked to write one word or a
I know.
phrase, change. Because change, yeah, what I want is not maybe answers. Maybe you just don't answer anything, but it
Right.
makes you think. You have to
Yeah.
be thinking and reflecting because
Yeah.
change triggers emotions, you know.
Yes.
So for some of us, it might bring excitement. For others, it might bring resistance or fear because adaptive leadership is all about how we lead through that emotional space of change, not around it. You
Right.
see, so it keeps you thinking. All right, so what is the adaptive leader's edge? It navigates through ambiguity. What is ambiguity? Adaptive leaders, they don't wait for perfect clarity. There's no need for a perfect clarity for an adaptive leader. They move forward with purpose, even when the path is not clear. So, first of all, that's who an adaptive leader is. Then they make decisions with limited information and adjust as new insights emerge. Then they mobilize people to thrive. It's not about managing people through change. It's about equipping those teachers and people under you, your employees, to lead within it. And then they create a safe space. The adaptive leader would always create a safe space for experimentation, dialogue, and shared learning. Then they build resilience in systems. Adaptive leaders, they design schools that bend without breaking, and they embed flexibility, shared ownership, and continuous feedback into the culture. This is not about being the hero who has all the answers. It's about empowering your teams to respond to changing realities and doing that together. So, what is an adaptive leadership? It's It's based on work of Heifetz, Grasso, and Linsky. This model comes from Howard Kennedy School. It emerged from studying how leaders navigate complex, high-stake changes. They differentiate, what they do exactly is they differentiate between technical problems, which have known solutions, and adaptive challenges, which require people to change values, behaviors, or properties. Then we have focus on learning, experimentation, and shared responsibility. Adaptive leadership is not command and control. It's about learning in real time. It invites collective problem solving and encourages people to take the ownership of the problem, even if there is a level of discomfort involved. It's about curiosity and collaboration than control and compliance. So in a traditional model, you would more see a structure and compliance, rules, strict rules or regulation. In an adaptive model, you would see more of empathy and collaboration. Then we have diagnosis, distinguish, regulate, and maintain. So these four actions are actually the backbone of adaptive leadership. Diagnose, which is diagnose the system, which is what's really going on, distinguish technical from adaptive challenges. Are we applying the quick fixes or to deeper issues, or regulate distress, which is how do we keep people engaged without overwhelming them, and maintaining disciplined attention, which is keeping the focus on the tough work of change, even when it is uncomfortable. So now take a look at the adaptive leadership model. Here I'm going to show you. There is one which is again the diagnosing the system, distinguishing. Second one is mobilizing people. Then we have regulating distress. Then we have maintaining disciplined attention. And then I have added one more to that four framework, which is give the work back to the people, which is like delegating your power, sharing your power, trusting your team. Because adaptive leadership, it focuses on navigating uncertainty, inspiring resilience, and driving innovation. So in the real context, it comes to our mind that how adaptive leader might operate. So here are a few examples how they might operate, which is like, get off the dance floor, which is like, come on, get up and do some action, embrace failure. Go ahead and embrace your failure, because failure is your first, embracing or acknowledging your failure is your first step to going towards correcting it. Then empowerment allows teams to execute. Then embrace uncertainty. The empathy and mutual trust, diversity, very important, diversity. Focus, you need to know where your focus should lie to the real problem. Timely response, response alone is nothing if it's not timely. And then constructive conflict. I mean, you might, in a team setting, you're always going to have difference of opinion. You're always going to have a conflict, but then the feedback or the conflict has to be constructive for the good of the whole team.
Yeah.
Then leadership versus authority. I mean, you have to know where you have to use your leadership skills and where you need authority. Then clearly articulating your intent. It's very important to let on in your team what your intent is. And expect your plans to change. There's always going to be a change. So how do you apply this model to education? Which is managing resistance to curriculum change. Have you ever seen, Walter, a lot of schools going through this problem? They have resistance to curriculum change. What is your take on it?
It's so true. And at least here in the States, we're so conditioned to going through the newest curriculum change that the phenomenon is that teachers wait it out. They assume it'll be implemented and it'll be gone in 3 years and they can move on. We had an interesting comment from Alfonso a couple of minutes ago in the chat box on this. The challenge includes transforming the education curriculum for everyone and securing the adequate funding to carry out so it's sustainable. So it doesn't just ride off into the sunset.
Thank you, Alfonso. So true, because not only we need equality, but we also need equity. It's like the universal, let's say the universal design for learning comes into play, whether all students can manage to have success. I mean, every student should be able to, the best curriculum is the one, the best transformative education is the one where all students succeed. That's
Right.
the model we're looking for, you know?
Yes.
So curriculum shifts, they often trigger fear, not just of content, but of competency and identity and relevance. And instead of pushing harder, adaptive leaders, they engage teachers in shaping the change, making them co-owners of the journey. So resistance is information. If
Yeah.
you see, resistance is information. It tells us where people are struggling and where support is needed. So resistance, seeing resistance always is not a bad thing. You at least can identify the problem through seeing the resistance in the system.
Yeah.
The next is leading digital transitions, which is tech integration is not just about devices. Just before we started the webinar, I and Walter were talking about that. During COVID times, when we were pushed to, suddenly go online and do everything online, I jumped right in and started working with 40, 50. I mean, I wanted to be an expert on all. And within a year, I realized it might not be a very good idea. So tech integration is about new mindsets and workflows and pedagogies. And leaders must address both the technical, which is the infrastructure, the tools, and the adaptive system, which is the beliefs and habits sides of the change. So what we exactly need are the tools that go with the ecosystem and culture of our school. The goal is not just tech adoption, it's meaningful transformation of learning through adopting those technologies. Next is building shared ownership of school vision. So a school vision cannot be imposed from the top. It must be co-created. Adaptive leaders, they invite diverse voices into shaping the future, making it more resilient and relevant. When people, which I mean the teachers and the other administrator, they help create the vision, even the students, I would say, they help create the vision, they're more committed to realizing it, even when it gets really hard. So this is where theory meets practice. School leaders must guide teams through discomfort and reimagine how we serve our students.
And
So here
Javeria,
is a
Marco, I'm sorry, I know we have a bit of a lag between us. Marco is asking in the chat box, there's also the issue of equity and grading, how we assess students when we're
yes,
talking about
yes, of
curriculum.
course.
And he asked if you could remark on that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for your question, Marco. Okay, so when we grade teachers, what we usually do is that we just give them one like structured exam or anything that we grade them over. We
Right.
need to realize, I mean, it's similar. Like if you start teaching a fish to, climb a tree, the fish will never be able to do that. It's the same with the students. So we have to identify the skills of our students, know exactly how they can suppose, even if we look at the model of multiple intelligences, some
Yeah,
of our
yeah.
students are audio learners, some of them are visual learners, some of them are kinesthetic learners, some of them might draw things for you. So as long as they're able to provide you some evidence that they have learned the topic, you cannot grade them, through the same strict structure. So
Right.
I think here teachers, I mean, even if the system, because I have faced that in my classroom in Pakistan.
Yep.
So even if the system is not providing you support, what you can do at your end as a teacher is diversify and make a little different assignments for them to gauge and assess that whether they can do it or not. Because maybe they have learned a lot and it's just that you don't know it. They just can't show it on the paper that they've learned it.
Thank you.
All right, so here we go about, your leadership superpower. So imagine, you're a school leader. This is a fun thing. Imagine you're a school leader, superhero facing a world full of change. So can you please type in the chat, what would be your leadership superpower? Just one short phrase. I've given a few examples, if you can see on the slide, like you think your superpower is adaptability vision, or whether it is courage to innovate, or it's resilience shield, empathy beam. Mine is empathy beam. I can tell you that. Mine
Yeah.
is empathy beam. Okay, finally I can see the chat.
Ah, there you go.
Oh, wow. All right.
So yeah,
Oh, mine is empathy beam.
yeah, mine has always been consensus building, being able to bring people
Okay.
together and
Okay.
come to some agreement on a path forward.
Great. Great. Courage to innovate is also a very good superpower, I would say. Not everyone can innovate
Yes.
and experiment. People don't, sometimes they don't find enough courage. Sometimes they go through, uh, you know, um, doubts about their,
Yeah.
ability to do that. Yeah.
Yes. Marco says caring and accessible are his superpowers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. So Marco, yours is empathy beam again. Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. So, AI attack and the human touch. What we see here is the what leaders must embrace and question in AI tech and human touch. First of all, it's the opportunities, the efficiency, the personalization, and access. Now, AI can free up teachers' time by automating administrative tasks. We all know that, allowing them to focus more on the instruction and relationships. What it can do for us is that it offers personalized learning pathways that we were talking about. You see, Marco, here's the thing. So AI can offer us personalized learning pathways that we can use to assess our students, meeting them where they are, especially in a large or diverse classrooms. So for under-resourced schools, especially let's say schools in South Asia or Africa, in Pakistan, for example, AI tools can expand access to quality content. We can, in Pakistani schools in Lahore, sitting in Lahore, we can access the open resources in the US, North America,
Yeah.
Canada,
Yeah.
and Middle East, everywhere, content and expert systems and global collaboration. So this is where the opportunity is. When we talk about the risk, the disconnection, the surveillance bias, when over relied upon, okay, so there's good side to tech and there's also bad side to tech. When suppose students or teachers they start over relying on tech, then it can isolate learners also. It can reduce opportunities for collaboration and for building of empathy and connection and social learning. Social learning can take a real big blow. So teachers have to be very careful when they're using tech in the classrooms and encouraging their students to use the tech. And there are ethical concerns also where the world is the world overall, let's say the leadership, they're talking a lot about people in AI are actually talking about ethical issues. But what I see in the school systems, nobody is actually really talking about the ethical concerns around student data and constant monitoring and decision making algorithms that can replicate bias in
Yeah.
some ways.
Yeah.
And then equity can also be compromised if AI tools are designed without local context or cultural sensitivity. This is very important. And then the last one is human centered integration is the key. So, whatever we do, AI, there has been a lot of debate generally going on between, look, AI taking over and AI not taking over. But my take has always been that, everything is human centered. As long as everything remains human centered, AI will not take over. It will always be a tool, and human will always be the one wielding the tool. So the leader's role is to ensure AI and tech serve human goals, not replace them. We must ask, is this helping students think better, the tool that we are using? Is it connecting more deeply? Or is it growing our students' character? These are the two, three things that you should keep in your mind while selecting the AI tool for your students. So adaptive leadership means critically engaging with the tools, embracing what works, and challenging what doesn't work. AI is not just a tool. It changes how schools function. Our job is to lead with discernment, not panic, not blind adoption.
Yeah.
Like I was talking earlier, what we don't definitely need blind adoption. We need careful selection. So how do you build a healthy AI-enabled culture? Well, first of all, you set purpose before tool. What it means is Before selecting any tech or AI tool, ask yourself, what problems are we trying to solve through this tool? The tool should align with your school's mission and learning goals. It's crucial to establish a purpose first. Don't let the latest tech trend, dictate your approach and take over. And you have to be clear about what outcomes you want for your students and your staff. So that's the first decision an adaptive leader has to make.
Mhm.
The second one is train your staff with confidence. AdTech cannot just be handed over to teachers. Leaders need to create meaningful, ongoing professional development opportunities for teachers, not just one-time workshops. Give teachers the tools, but more importantly, the confidence to use them. Training must be hands-on, practical, and it should allow space for experimentation and even challenging and questioning the tool that you selected for the school. Training should also focus on digital literacy and ethical consideration so teachers can guide students safely and thoughtfully. The third goal is keep student agency central. Schools are made to teach students. They are made to train young minds. So students are central to everything. Technology should empower students, not control them. Keep their voices and choices at the center of it all the learning. Let them lead their learning journey. Give students the ownership of the tool that they're using, and you should encourage them to, reflect on it and, criticize it throughout the learning process. This supports active learning and helps students build critical thinking skills, which is one of the most important and sought after 21st century skills, which is critical thinking. The world is going through tons of problems that we see, and all we need is innovators and problem solvers. And the skill problem solver need to solve these issues is critical thinking. So tech is never neutral. You're not just choosing platforms, you're shaping the culture. Always keep that in your mind. So here is another poll. Leadership skill that matter most in the next 5 years. So I would like to know what is your take on it? In your view, what leadership competency you think will be the most critical for school leaders over the next 5 years, whether it's adaptability, it's emotional intelligence, it's strategic innovation, it's cultural responsiveness, or it's data-driven decision making. What is it? Let's see. Let's wait.
Alfonso had made a comment,
Mhm.
and it kind of aligns with your question. He's saying, why do we lose our appetite for continuous learning? We're all under pressure to do so much, but the learning means sustainable innovation, and that's exactly what we urgently need. So,
Exactly. Thank you,
you know,
Alfonso.
it's a
So I would
fabulous
like to
point.
know what Alfonso, Marco, what do you guys think, which leadership skill is the most going to be matter most in the next 5 years? What do you think, Walter?
Here in the States,
Out
it's
of,
cultural responsiveness. There
all
is
right.
such an influx of different cultures and needs, and we need to be more adaptive and agile in responding to those things.
Thank you for that comment. And I kind of agree with you because, like we say, America is a melting pot of
Yeah,
cultures.
yeah,
So in America, there is no American actually. I
right,
mean, if you look at
right,
the history, I mean,
exactly,
no American in
exactly.
America. So yeah, I kind of agree with you, but I also believe that, it also comes somewhat under the umbrella of adaptability because only if you have that
Yeah.
skill of adaptability, leadership skill of adaptability, so you would respond really well to cultural responsiveness.
And
So
Alfonso
yeah.
was saying in the chat box, he sees a combination of critical, systemic, and holistic thinking if we're going to be
Exactly,
sustainable. Yeah,
exactly. I,
yeah,
I I believe. Thank you, Alfonso. I actually believe they're all very important. They're all sought after skills: adaptability, emotional intelligence. Like I would say that EQ, emotional intelligence, plus AQ, which is adaptability quotient. We need both of them.
yes.
So yeah. So let's talk about teacher retention and well-being. What do we see here is teachers are cultural builders. I believe also teachers are cultural builders of any system.
Yep.
And let's see what they're facing. What they're facing is burnout, which is
Yes.
systematic, not personal failure. This is basically not personal failure. So we
Right.
must acknowledge that teacher burnout is not just about individuals struggling to manage workload. It's a
Yeah.
systematic issue. It's a result of overwhelming expectations, lack of support, tons of useless paperwork, insufficient resources. I mean, you name it, and teachers are suffering through it.
Yeah.
Leaders, they need to understand that burnout can be prevented through better systems, better structures, and by addressing root cause such as workload and inadequate planning time. A culture, so the leader, it's on the leader to build a
Yeah.
culture that recognizes burnout as systematic and helps eliminate the stigma that asking for help is a personal failure. Oftentimes, I've seen
Yes.
teachers, they are just kind of dying under the workload pressure, but they believe that they have to be there every time, they have to show up, and then asking for help might be considered a weakness or a personal failure. Now, that's what an individual is thinking, but what's the job of an adaptive leadership is to make such a culture to not only recognize, how the team is, if your team is going through such burnout phases, but also helping them and making a safe space for them to come and talk to you, which is very important. So again, like, we don't need autocratic leaders here, because autocratic leader would not be able to identify and help through this.
Exactly.
What we need is a culture of care, which is crisis response. So instead of waiting for burnout or crisis to hit, what we need to do is prevention. Prevention here is the key. Establishing a culture, like I said, of care, which it means fostering an environment where teachers feel valued and supported and heard every single day. So a crisis-driven approach only addresses problems when they're already affecting staff, morale, and performance. A culture of care, what does a culture of care do? A culture of care actively nurtures staff well-being through proactive actions and consistent emotional support. When we intentionally build a supportive culture, we prevent issues before they escalate into burnout and absenteeism or resignation. Then listening, flexibility, and purpose. So, what do effective leaders do? The adaptive, effective leaders, they listen deeply to the needs of their teachers. The regular check-ins, open communication channels, it creates a space where staff feel comfortable sharing challenges before they even become bigger problems. So flexibility in expectations is essential. Teaching is a demanding job, we all know that. And leaders must be willing to adapt, whether through flexible schedules, adjustments in workloads, or providing mental health days when needed. Purpose matters. Teachers need to feel that their work is not just not their work and salary thing. It's just not their earning thing. They need to feel alignment with the higher purpose, with the vision, and and to be able to make a meaningful, that they're there to make a meaningful impact. Leadership must keep reminding them of the importance of their role in shaping students' future. Your school culture either nourishes people or depletes them. So leadership is a major determinant of the well-being of the teachers. How we create this ecosystem which is supportive? Well, first of all, professional learning aligned with real needs. Support should be grounded in the real day-to-day needs of the teachers, not just theoretical or generic professional development. Professional development must be responsive. It should be need-based to the specific challenges your teachers are facing, whether that's managing classroom behavior, using new technology, or addressing diverse students' needs. When professional learning is tailored to teachers' real needs, it's far more engaging and impactful. This means ongoing support rather than one-time workshop, allowing for continuous improvement and reflection. And leaders must also regularly check in with the teachers to identify the areas where they need help the most, ensuring that the professional development is provided, or the professional development that is provided is meaningful and relevant. Next we have is valuing non-performative care, which is support also means recognizing and valuing the emotional and rational working teachers they do every day. This includes acknowledging their stress, the emotional energy, and the challenges of being on the front lines. We all know teachers are the frontliners, so valuing their non-performative care. When leaders prioritize well-being and emotional support, it sends a strong message that teachers are valued not just for their performance, but for their humanity.
Yeah.
And then we have peer collaboration. Collaboration is not just sometimes we talk about collaborating and we believe that it might be just a nice to have add-on. I don't believe in that. It's not a nice to have add-on. It is something very essential. Teachers thrive when they have structured time to work together, share strategies, and reflect on each other's practices. Peer collaboration, they allows teachers to learn from one another's strengths and also their weaknesses, and also address common challenges and build a sense of community. So this kind of collaboration fosters innovation and creates a network of support that extends beyond the leadership team. So a few strategies I would like to share here is like, what teachers can do, which is well-being check-ins, with each other and with the leadership, growth opportunities provided by the leadership, and redesigning workload smartly. Teachers can do it within themselves, or teaching can take help of the leadership in doing that, whichever way is beneficial for your school system. So these are some of the strategies you can look up more strategies in the resources and material that I will be providing at the end.
Yes, yes.
So now is the hard part: transformational versus transactional leadership. Yes. So what is transactional? Let's take a look at transactional. Rules, compliance, control. Transactional leadership, it focuses on maintaining order and stability within the system. It's about managing day-to-day operations, ensuring that rules are being followed and keeping things running smoothly, which is good sometimes. But then, in a transition leadership model, rewards and punishments are often used to motivate performance. If employees follow the rule, they're rewarded. If they don't, there are consequences. So while this approach is effective in environments where consistency and structure are key, for example, let's say regulatory compliance or routine tasks, it can sometimes stifle innovation and creativity, which the world requires. So transactional leadership, it works best in settings where clear short-term objectives are required. However, it can feel limiting in a rapidly changing world where flexibility and innovation are necessary. So we have to make, even if your school has not made the shift from transformational to transactional leadership, it is high time you do that. So what is transformational leadership? This is what we need. It is about inspiring and motivating people to achieve more than just the minimum. It's about not only following the rules, it's about casting a compelling vision and aligning people's value with the organization's mission. So transformational leaders, what they do is they focus on empowering their team members to take ownership of their work, foster personal growth and development, and create a culture of trust and collaboration. This leadership style is essential when navigating complex, fast-changing environments like education today. It's just not about telling people what to do. It's about inspiring them to be part of something bigger. So a transformational leader does not just manage the present, they lead people towards an exciting future. They encourage innovation and adaptability and embrace change and motivate their teams to push beyond their comfort zone. Walter, what's your take on transactional versus transformational leadership? What you have seen in your career?
This is so much the crux of the challenge in front of us, Javeria. And everything you're summarizing, what keeps coming back in my mind is a phrase that's used a lot here: servant leadership, where the leaders, instead of being authoritarian, serve the teachers, serve the students, find ways to be receptive to what they say they need and what they express as the opportunities in front of them. And that allows you to be transformational because you're not worried about the compliance and the top down. You're thinking about how you can help each individual in your care to flourish and be everything they can be and fulfill their potential.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing. So basically, the both kind of mindset, both styles have their place, but the future belongs to those who can inspire and not
Yes.
just instruct.
Yes.
All right. So what we have here is shifting mindset in in practice. So how do we see that in practice? First of all, from control, how do we make the shift? We've learned about transformational, transactional, but how do we make the shift? It is from control to trust. So in the past, the leaders, they often felt the need to control every aspect of the process. Today, trust is the key. When we trust our teams, they feel empowered to take risks and they're ready to experiment and they innovate. So trust fosters a culture of autonomy where teachers and staff can make decisions and grow in their roles without fear of micromanagement. Micromanagement can be very detrimental to any leadership or any school culture.
Yeah.
And the next in line is from hierarchy to collaboration.
Yeah.
So traditional hierarchies, what they focus on is command and obedience. The future is about collaboration, where everyone's voice is valued and heard. And when leaders and teams work together, the ideas flow more freely and the problems are solved collectively. Everyone takes the ownership of the problem. So this creates a more dynamic and engaged environment where everyone contributes to the success of the team. And then from stability to innovation. So again, stability might not be a very good idea every time. Sometimes a little mess is very creative and innovative. So stability, I believe, is important, but in a rapidly changing world, innovation is what keeps us ahead of the game.
Mhm.
Embracing change and encouraging creative thinking, it allows us to meet new challenges with confidence. So innovation thrives when we let go of the comfort zone. We have to come out of our stability is actually our comfort zone. So leaders who embrace change, they encourage their teams to think outside the box and develop forward-thinking solutions. So what I believe is that I understand that it's difficult and these shifts might not happen overnight, but once they do, you guys will see that the difference in how your teams collaborate and innovate and trust each other. And you're not just leading a team here. You're what you're doing is you're transforming a culture. So building how do we build a future ready school? Your school as a learning ecosystem. It is vision driven by learners' futures. So a future ready school, what is a future ready school?
Mhm.
What comes to your mind, Walter? What is a future ready school? Let's see.
It's a fascinating question because everything is changing so quickly now that to be future ready, you have to somehow anticipate what the world is that these students will inherit. What will the jobs be? What will be the ways they can contribute and add value? And from where we're sitting, we can see how far we've come from the world we knew. But to be able to be future ready, you have to be able to anticipate a technology like AI that came on the uh, landscape and is just changing everything immediately. Um, so again, maybe the easy answer, Javeria, is the adaptability, the being able to live in the
Yes.
ambiguity, understand everything's still changing right under our feet, and that we need to continue to change with it.
So true, Walter. Thank you for sharing. Yes, adaptability, because as long as you have the skill, you will be able to, be on the top of the game. Like we keep seeing these studies where they say that by 2035, let's say, even around 45% of the world jobs or professions we've not even heard of now, as
Yes,
of in 2024, will be
right.
in the market. So, what is a future ready ecosystem learning? So a future ready school, it just doesn't respond to current So basically, you don't have to respond to only current trends.
Yeah.
It anticipates what's coming and then, adapting yourself according to that. Our vision must align with preparing students not just for tests, but for real life work,
Yes.
the citizenship, which is constantly evolving. Then we have equity, adaptability, creativity at its core. Equity, which ensures that all learners have what they need to succeed, regardless
Yes.
of their background. And
Yes.
then adaptability again prepares us to pivot as challenges arise, and creativity fosters problem solving in a world that demands constant innovation.
Yes.
And then we have continuous leadership reflection. What is a leader if you do not have the skill to reflect on your decisions and what you have done and learning from your mistakes? So leadership must be a dynamic, evolving process. It's reflecting on our own practices, keeping us in tune with the needs of our learners and our staff and what happens by constantly reflecting is that we ensure that we're modeling the growth mindset we want our students to adopt. So for
Yes.
our students to be, have growth mindset, we need to reflect on our own decision-making process. Because future readiness is not just about tech tools, it's about fostering the mindset and structures and moral courage to lead through that change.
And honestly, being authentic in all of that is important because young people see us. And if we're modeling it, if we show that we're reflective, if we show that we respond to their needs, then they internalize that. When they see us saying one thing that people should be reflective, but we're too busy to be reflective, they notice that and they realize that we're not being authentic. And so, and Alfonso had mentioned this earlier in one of his comments, that we're being asked to do so much, it can sound like a luxury to stop and make the time to be reflective. But it's so necessary if we're going to be successful.
So true, so true. Thank you, Walter. So here is the future, building a future ready school. So what you need is fostering a culture of agility
Yes,
and lifelong learning, like you were talking about earlier,
yes,
and also integrating technology with a human first approach
yep,
and promote equity, inclusivity, and student agency.
yeah.
Because a future ready school is the one that embraces innovation, focuses on student centered learning, and prepares for continuous disruption.
Yeah.
So, all right, here comes the very interesting question. Know the leadership styles, and like we know, there are so many styles, and I've just listed a few here. Let's see. Transformational, instructional, servant, like you were talking about earlier, with putting your team first, serving other people,
Mhm.
thinking they're more important. Your job is actually to serve them. Servant leadership style, authoritative and laissez-faire, which is giving team members autonomy.
Mhm.
So, what do you think you are? By the way, at the end in the resources, you will also find a toolkit that I prepared myself, and there's a
Yes,
list of questions in that. And
yes,
by ticking on them, you by the end you can know exactly what your leadership style is. Because sometimes when we hear fancy words like putting other people first, let's say. And so I like the term, okay, I'm giving other people importance. Maybe I'm a servant leader, but then maybe I'm not. How do I
right,
know that I am? Unless
right.
I go through those real life questions, real life situations where I have to tick mark, okay, is it A, B, C, D, or F? And in the end, you count and you get to know your style. But before you do that little test that I've given, what do you think, Walter, is your leadership style?
Well, I prided myself in being transformational, but I'm also self-aware and reflective enough to know that I'm continually learning how to be more transformational. Sometimes
Ah,
I feel I'm kind of beholden to the ways I was brought up, the old ways. And so constantly aspiring to be more transformational by allowing others to change and grow and support them.
okay, thank you. Let's see what our participants think they are. Let's see in the chat. They think they're
Yes.
transformational, instructional, servant, democratic, authoritative, less rare. I think I also tend towards being a transformational because I believe in a lot of adaptability, innovation, critical thinking, growth mindset.
Yeah.
And like the other day when we were on Zoom together, I was
Yeah.
talking to Walter and I told him that, when he was asking me about what I do and
Yeah.
stuff, and I told him I'm a professional student, which is like a constant lifelong learning thing, a constant
Yes.
like I'm gonna
Yes.
be a student all my life. So
Yeah.
what do we see in the chat box? We see anybody?
People are thinking.
All right. That's good. That's good.
And honestly, when I look at the different kinds of leadership across the span of a career, you use all of these different traits. There are times
Oh
that you
yeah.
just have to be a decision maker. But then there are times if you're too democratic, nobody makes a decision. And then there are
Hmm.
times being transactional is necessary because somebody needs something and so in exchange, you give them what they need and then help them bring along where
Yeah.
you need them to be. So they're all important, but it depends on the context and the situation.
Exactly. I kind of tend to agree with you is because, at times we have pretty much used each one of them depending on the context and the experience and the situation. So, I mean, we might identify with one of the styles more, but then
Mhm.
we have had to deal with situations where we have used, all of them in some
Alfon
situations.
Yes, and Alfonso's in the chat box saying collaboratively working with teachers, students, institutions, and communities to actively respond to the challenges of climate change and social crises, constantly innovating and learning right alongside them.
All right. So the collaboration. So you're into feedback and collaboration. So I guess you identify more with a democratic leadership style. Let's say, Alfonso. Thank you, Alfonso. So basically, which style? By the way, which style is perfect? That's a tricky one.
Yes, it is.
Which you? What do you think, Walter? Which is the best one?
Well, I'm partial to transformational, but I don't think any of them are perfect.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm partial to transformational too because that's the need of
Yes.
the hour, let's say. But like we say, look, no style is perfect. The best leaders are the one that keep switching the gears as needed.
Yep.
Leadership is not one size fit all. So that's why I've included a toolkit to reflect on your own style and how it's evolving and how you can make it better every
Yes.
day.
Yeah.
All right. So here is a little, inspiring something. Can you hear this?
I know I can't. I'm not sure about the audience, but I can't hear it.
Yeah, that's what I was like wondering if you guys can.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. It was a little. It was a little inspiring. I wanted to share,
Yeah.
but it's okay. So, so like I said, I don't want you guys to leave empty-handed. There is a lot coming up in the resources and materials. So
Yes.
it's a little time for reflection time, which is leading with purpose. So I have a set of 4 questions, and I'm going to put them up one by one. What personal leadership shift do I need to make to prepare for future challenges?
Yeah.
And how can I better support my teachers' well-being in times of uncertainty?
Mm.
What outdated practices in my school do I need to question or rethink?
Mm.
And how will I build a school culture that embraces change rather than resists it? So I encourage you to, before we wrap up, I'd like to, leave with this reflection. And you don't need to answer them right away. These are
Mhm.
just, questions that you should take with you and, just sit there, even now, sit there, take a moment and maybe, all of them speak to you. Maybe one of them stand out to you and maybe all four, like I said, speak to you. So
Sure.
what they're there to, make you like they're there to help you begin shaping your leadership style and your
Yes.
leadership story. That's what
Yes.
they are. So leadership shift, I need to can we discuss one of it? Because little time. So is there any, I mean, you've had a very long, illustrious career, Walter. So is there any outdated practice in your school you observed that you thought you needed to change and maybe you were able to, or you're not able to in both cases, if you would like
Well,
to.
that's my favorite reflection point. I think at this stage of the game for me, the most outdated practice I keep questioning, and I don't have the answers yet, but I keep questioning, is the idea of everyone needs to come to one brick and mortar school to learn. That if we're really going to meet the needs of all learners, that maybe education needs to be more centered out in the community. And maybe learners just start learning with one teacher, but maybe they're having apprenticeships with experts with certain skills and mentors and different professions out in the community who help bring them
Mhm.
along in their interests so that when they do graduate, they're ready to go into the workforce and feel that they can support their community and they
Yeah,
have
that's
a
an
way of living. Um, it's to me, that's the most outdated, that we're still busing everybody in to these big buildings. And here in the States, they keep building bigger buildings. So now high schools can have 3,000 and 4,000 students in them, and they're like miniature towns. But if we're still not meeting the needs of our learners, then maybe it's a practice that was wonderful in the industrial age, but maybe we need to rethink because it's a huge expense. It's something that requires the most of our budgets to support these buildings and buses and everything that comes with them. And yet, if we have students that aren't able to be successful, maybe it's time to rethink that outdated model.
Thank you, Walter. I can understand. I mean, I so much agree with you that we are talking about in the leadership circles, in the thought leadership of education, we're talking so much about adaptive leadership and the future ready school leaders and all of that. But then
Right,
are we preparing the future ready students? I mean, that's the big question that we need to be asking ourselves. And
right,
a lot of sometimes even our, like you mentioned, the industrial era, I mean the kind of curriculums that we are working on is I mean there was an industrial era and then post-industrial and then digital, and now we're in the post-digital one. So what we
right.
need is a revolutionary change in our curriculum systems as well.
Yes, totally agree.
Yeah. So I hope you guys were able to reflect on these questions a bit. And
Yes.
if you would like to share anything, you can type in the chat box regarding these reflection questions. So let's just, all right. So let's do a little recap. Uh,
Yes.
which is what did we do today? So today we explored, how adaptive leadership can help you navigate complexity and drive meaningful changes and build resilient school cultures and embrace technology with discernment and shifting mindsets from control to collaboration. Remember that this is not about having all the answers today. We'll never have all the answers,
No.
but about being willing to ask the right questions. That's the big thing. You need to know how to ask the right questions, the big questions, and lead your teams through uncertainty. This session might be ending, but then this conversation, Walter, it doesn't end here,
No.
because I invite you personally and all of my other participants to continue this journey of growth. And whether through further resources or ongoing dialogue or by reaching out for advice to me or to Walter through the Worthy Educator, just feel free to connect with me directly. I have my
Yes.
contact number and my email here right up
Yes.
for you, and you can sign up for future trainings through the Worthy Educator if you would like to dive deeper into specific topics, advanced resources, and share your experiences or explore ways to implement adaptive leadership in your own school. So this
Yes.
is an ongoing work. You're not alone. I'm right here, and let's keep this global dialogue alive.
Yes. Absolutely.
So that's
And
a wrap.
it's wonderful.
Bye.
And Javeria has a wonderful collection of resources, and she's going to share some ways to access them here. I'll also include them in the follow-up email to everyone, Javeria, along with the recording link, so that if they don't grab them right here, right now on screen, they'll be able to get them in their email.
So what they're going to get is a full leadership toolkit created by me and a downloadable PDF, lots of them summarizing key strategies of becoming an adaptive leadership in an age of change. Also, a curated list of some of the recommended books. In fact, I have also added one PDF book, one or two books, and also a few articles and self-reflection activities to identify your leadership style and plan personalized growth paths. So ready to use actionable resources you can use immediately in your schools. Here is the feedback form. You can scan the QR code. You can see, and the other one is for materials and resources. It's okay if you're not able to scan the QR code like Walter mentioned. He's going to, with a follow-up email, is going to share everything. You can share the slides and also, the webinar slides, presentation, and the resources, the feedback form, and the webinar's recording. All right, we did it. Thank you so much, everyone.
What a fantastic hour. Thank you, Javeria, for sharing your expertise and your vision for this. We all aspire to be future-ready leaders.
All right. Are we going to take a picture?
Yes, we are. So big smiles.
Okay. Okay.
All right, got it.
Got it? Okay.